Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli o'quvchilar. Bugun biz sizlar bilan Alisher Navoi haqida gaplashamiz. Hi everyone, welcome to Uzbek Learn with Dilnoza, and today we're going to learn about Alisher Navoi. And this is lesson 36. Before we start, I wanted to remind you that the Uzbek language, Uzbek dili, is from Qarluq branch of the Turkic languages, which includes Turkish, Uyghur or Uyghur, we say, Kazakh, Tatar, which is in Russia, Tatarstan, and Kyrgyz. And as you know, in Uzbek, we use morphemes and suffixes, but we call them agglutinative language. That means words consist of morphemes and suffixes. You just add the endings to the word. Couple of facts. Turk or Chagatai literary language was used by Timur, Amir Timur we say, and his successors. The first literary works were written by the famous poet Mir Alisher Navoi, whose birthday was celebrated on February 9th of this year, starting from 1441 when he was born. My favorite saying by Alisher Navoi is Bilmaganni so'rab o'rgangan olim, orlanib so'ramagan o'ziga zolim. Basically, if you translate it, it means you have to ask because we don't know everything, right? And when you ask something from somebody, you shouldn't be shy because that's how you learn from others. And this is Alisher Navoi. So who is Alisher Navoi? Alisher Navoi is spelled in differently. In Uzbek we say Navoi. In English people use with W as well. So both are correct. Famous poet and thinker, writer, state figure, founder of the Uzbek literature and the Uzbek literature language. He wrote not only in Arabic, but also in Roman and Cyrillic. So this is the map. I wanted to make sure that you can see where he was born. Alisher Navoi was born on February 9, 1441 in Herat. Okay? In Herat here. And Kabul is the capital of current Afghanistan. So his father, Gayas, we call him Gayas al-Din Kichkina, was a noble official, and his grandmother was a nurse for Timurid prince. Young Alisher was brought up with them. When he was 4, he started to go to school. As the governor Shahrukh had died at that time, a fight for power started in Khorasan. And many people had to leave Herat. Okay? Many people had to leave this place. So what happened to Navoi's family? The family of Alisher Navoi moved to Iraq and settled in Taft. From Afghanistan, they moved to Iraq. So in 1455, when Abu al-Qasim Babur was proclaimed a new governor, the family turned to Herat. Again, they came back to Herat. Here you can see that. When he was turning 15, Alisher Navoi used to have a friend, Sultan Hussein Baikara, and they worked together at Babur's court. If you're interested more about Alisher Navoi's childhood, you can read his work and get to know his life. Here is the current map, and you can see this is all Afghanistan, where Alisher Navoi was born in Herat here. So Alisher Navoi wrote many scientific publications. The heritage of Alisher Navoi is rich to include many ghazals. And a ghazal is a poem that is made up an odd numbered chain of verses where each verse is an independent poem. When I was in school, we read a lot and learned about each type of ghazal. In Uzbek, we call it ghazal. Ghazal means to love a woman. That's why Alisher Navoi wrote a lot about love, how one loved a woman. This type of poem was developed in the 6th and 7th centuries in the Arab literature and poetry. Later on, it was used in Farsi literature, for example, in the 10th century, and then finally, in the 14th century, it was used in Turkic literature. If you're really super interested, you can learn more about ghazal by reading Uzbek books, but you need to know that usually from 3 to 19 we have verses when we talk about ghazal. Sometimes you can find up to 21 and 27 verses. And it is rhymed as A, B, A, V, A, G, A, D, A. And I'll show you what I mean by that. The initial part of ghazal, we call them as matla or mabda. And the last part is called maqta. Those of you who are interested in the literature and want to know more, maybe write about it, we can always help you find the right information. If you happen to rhyme the second verses, then it is called Zidi Matla or Husn Matla. It's a very interesting way to learn the Uzbek literature, but once you start reading ghazals, you'll understand his rhyming. And I posted lots of ghazals by Alisher Navoi, both in Russian, Uzbek, and English. Alisher Navoi, legendary Uzbek poet. Ghazal 350 from the book Benefits of Old Age by Alisher Navoi, Love's Secret. You can hear and you can listen to more of his ghazals. But I wanted to mention that his scientific publications include many work like Wonders of Childhood, Marvels of Middle Age, Benefits of Old Age, and lots of other contribution to the world science. But the important thing that we need to mention here, Alisher Navoi was famous for Hamsa, which is composed of 5 epic poems. So you can see here Wonders of Good People, Farhat Vashirin. It's a very interesting poem. Layla va Majnun, Sabbai Sayyar, 7 travelers about 7 planets, and Sadi Iskandari. He also wrote philosophical poem, which is called Bird's Language. Also, he wrote Hearts in Love, collection of poetic verses, anthology of 15th century. About Muammo genre, he also talked about the argument between 2 languages, making the pearl necklace. And also he wrote about life stories of Sufis and collection of hadith. I wanted to share recitation by one of my students, Gunay Hanım, who recorded her words.
Assalamu alaikum, mening ismim Günay Ahundzade. Men Virginia ştatındanman. Her kimden dahr içinde donolik erur, ilm ile yaşanga meclis oralik erur, ayini tahammülde tavanolik erur, yük çekmek ile kişiye sibolik erur.
As you can see, Alisher Navoi had many great collection of hadith and poems, and people love reciting his words.
Assalamu alaikum.
Also, when you visit Uzbekistan, and when you go, if you use, for example, the subway, you still can see Alisher Navoi Bikate call, right? The subway station that is dedicated to Alisher Navoi. And when you walk, you can see all of his Hamsa 5 poems, their names, and then the beautiful depicted pictures. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Hamsa. Hamsa by Navoi is an outstanding achievement of the poet, and its creation became a beginning of a new stage in the history of development of the literature tradition for 300 years. The epic book is considered an invaluable exemplar of Uzbek classic literature and a remarkable monument of world literature. All his work and his humanistic creations, Navoi devoted to the well-being of people, to the establishment of peace in the country, the development of science, art, and literature. As you can see, Alisher Navoi was a peace-making person, right? Alisher Navoi, who was also a scientist, encyclopedist, and state figure, raised the Uzbek literary language to a higher level of its development. So you can see that one of the leading places in his work was ghazals that I talked about today, short verses, right, of the moral and upbringing nature. That's why when he talks about, I started today with my first slide, where he talked about upbringing nature, how people need to ask when they want to learn something, because nobody knows everything, right? So they talk creatively and beautifully about poets' ideas on perfect personality and human deeds. Acknowledging love for life and the dignity of the human creator, friendship between people, freedom and peace, the poet wrote, "Peoples of the world, you need to understand that war is evil. So live in friendship. There is no better destiny." Basically, you can see that Alisher Navoi, when he was a little boy, he saw lots of wars, you know, and he was the person who was fighting against the war, and he really wanted to have an established peace between people, countries. So his words of the genius are true for human aspiration of all the times. Alisher Navoi's main books are translated into many, many languages of the world, and they're really pretty popular. This is another evidence of his diverse and great work. If we talk about the world recognition, as Zahir al-Din Babur mentioned, Alisher Navoi was incomparable person. He wrote wonderful and so many verses in Turkic language that none had done so before him. So he was the first one. That's why I talked in my slides that he was the first creator of Uzbek literature, right? In the past, many of his papers were translated into Eastern and Western languages. For example, collection of the delicacies was translated into Persian 3 times in 16th century. The first translated work of Navai was the poem Seven Planets, published in Italian in 1556. Georgian poet of 17th century, Sisishvili, produced free translation of the poem Seven Planets in the end of the 19th century and the beginning of 20th centuries. The argument between two languages was translated to Turk and Tatar languages. So, for example, if you wanted to read, you could find in those languages. A great contribution to the research and creative heritage of Alisher Navoi was done by Russian scientists Bertels, Kanonov, Baravikov, Boldarev, Ivanov, and many others. For example, French scientists published Muhakamat al-Lughatin and Tarahi Muluki Ajam. So if you look and if you wanted to read about Farhad Vashirin, you could actually read it in German. French scientist Bailyn translated and published Majlis al-Nafais in French in 1861. As you can see, Alisher Navoi's work is well respected and translated into many languages. And I hope that you will find very interesting poems in his work when you will be reading about Alisher Navoi. And before I finish my presentation, I wanted to tell you that Alisher Navoi is so popular and is so respected, well respected in Uzbekistan in today's even, world. And in Tashkent, we have his monument, and you can see here his monument. Usually people who get married, they walk around the monument, or we have events that are celebrated at this monument as well. And I encourage you to visit this park, national park named after Alisher Navoi in Tashkent, when you visit the country. Also, we used to have 5 som, which is it wouldn't be like $5, but it's 5 som. You cannot buy anything right now, but where you can see this monument depicted on the money. That's the money, paper money. And here is another picture, the front part of the station. It's very beautiful, always clean. And when you travel, I would really recommend, especially in summer, using subway and reading about Alisher Navoi's work. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and learned about Alisher Navoi. Hayır.